Hello, welcome to our recurring series on the application services associated with pre-health programs, or with health programs, I should say. My name is Doug McLemore. I'll be walking you through the OptomCAS application today. So let's get that shared up on the screen and let's get to it. So whoever's in attendance, feel free to ask questions as we go. The first thing you're going to notice is you go to optomcas.org and you're going to want to log into the application for 2020-2021, except this is for 2020-2021. You're going to want to do the 2021 for 2022 if you're applying in this cycle, because the cycle for OptomCAS goes until June 30th, until May 27th, and it reopens on June 30th, 2021. That would be for the following year of the cycle. So right now we're going to be looking at the 2020-2021 application. I would anticipate that there's not going to be all that many differences between now and then. So we'll go ahead and go into there and it'll ask you for your sign information. If you don't already have your sign information, you would create an account here. That's pretty much the standard fare. You enter your name, your email, and a username and a password. So I'm going to skip that for now, since I don't want to give away any of my secret details. And we'll go right into the sign-in stage because I've already created an account. So add in your username and your password, sign in, and this is what you're going to see. Actually, technically, what you're going to see is this add a program comes up first. It's going to force you to add a program right away when you log in the first time. So I went ahead, we only have 3 to choose from right now because these programs are the only ones left in this cycle that are available. So I went ahead and selected Inter-American Unities for Puerto Rico School of Optometry. And we can show you what other options there are later on. So that's what you'll see first. You'll add one of these things. Once you add one or more of those programs, it'll take you to My Application. And now we can get started in entering our application. So the first place I would start is personal information, and we click on that. And the first thing is the release statement. Now, I know a lot of times people are a little hesitant about release statements, but here's the way I think of it. Just like when you're signing a lease for a house, doesn't matter what the lease says, if you're going to get the lease, you're going to have to sign it. So, I mean, I do suggest you do read what these things say and understand it, but if you don't agree with something, you're still going to have to check the boxes so that you can go through the process of applying to optometry school. So that's the unfortunate truth, is that sometimes the release statements are not optional. So you've got a continuing disclosure, their standards with the responsibilities of the applicants, which basically revolve around you're not lying about what you're doing. You do all these things and you're not lying about what you're saying. And the same with the OptomCAS applicant code of conduct. And then you can the last question on here is advisor release. You can select yes here, and that will allow an advisor to log in through OptomCAS through their account and be able to see your application if you want some assistance from your advisor. I don't know if that's super necessary, because with these days of sharing screens and things like that, you could probably just share your screen and show us what you're doing. It's not necessary to do the release to the advisors so much as it was in the past. So that's what's on the release statement. The next thing is good old-fashioned biographic information: name, your sex, your gender identity, pronouns if you choose, birth, and all that kind of fun stuff. That's basically the where you're from and who you are information. I don't think there's anything surprising there. Contact information, again, I don't think there's anything surprising here. This is mailing address, what your permanent address is versus your mailing address. I do want to address this here. If you're worried about residency issues, your permanent address should be the address in which you have your residence. You may be temporarily living somewhere else, like say you're out of the state for school or for something else, but you're applying as a resident of California. You want your permanent California address here in the permanent box, and your current address where they're going to mail you things potentially. So that's the distinction. So whatever your permanent address is, that should be the residency address that you're using for your residency consideration. And a phone number, email, that's again pretty much as expected. Citizenship information, just basically making sure you're a US citizen. And then of course, what your legal state of residence is. And then they'll say how long you've been a resident of your state. if you're in school in another state, you're not a resident of that state unless you went to the lengths of like getting a driver's license or registering to vote in that state or paying taxes in that state. So just be careful on how your residency works out. If there's ever a question of how your residency is going to work out, that's a good time to come and talk to an advisor to deal with that kind of thing. Race and ethnicity, most of these questions are going to be optional. You do not have to answer those questions. Other information, this is, are you military, have you committed crimes, like weird things involving your academic conditions, something like, if you were put on academic probation for some reason, like cheating or something like that, or even if it wasn't really cheating, you were still put on probation for that and you had to deal with it. You've gone to another medical school, you've just had long extended periods of being out of school or not employed during that time. Generation, the OAT pin, the OAT pin is the pin number you have when you register to take the OAT. So you'll need to have that in hand. Then there's a COVID statement, which basically is saying, what did you do during COVID and how did that affect you overall? My advice here is to keep this positive. Like it could be a very negative thing saying, oh, this was wrong, this was a problem, this was a problem. But you want to flip it on its head as much as you can and say, these are like, while this happened, I was enabled to do this other thing. So you always want to try to flip it to the positive side with these COVID statements. Now, the question is, will this be on the 2021, 2022 application? I don't know. I suspect it will be because people were still affected by this even in this past year. So that's our other information. So that's generally the gist of that informational setup and part of your application. There's not a lot of big surprises there. I'll pause for a moment and see if there's any questions about the things that you might enter in there. Or if you're all good, let me know and we can continue forward. I'm going to take that as a good, okay. So let's look at the academic history. What are the things we need to put in here? The first of those is the colleges attended. So you need to insert all of the colleges you have attended, including community colleges. Even if you only took one class there, you need to put that in here. So like, let's add a school right now. I assume a common school for most of you guys is going to be University of Davis, California, or University of California, Davis. So let's see if we can find that, if I can spell correctly. University of California. And it looks like, oh, there it is, University of California, Davis. And did you obtain or are planning to obtain a degree from this college or university? This would be if you're done, if you're completely done, yes, you did obtain your degree. If you're still, when you apply, if you're still in the process of finishing off a few classes, you would say no. So let's say we're finishing up our graduation, then we say, what degree were we awarded? And that would be, I'm guessing in most of your guys' case, a bachelor's of science. And when you earn that degree, so let's say it was December of 2020, maybe we graduated this past December, what major you had, and this could be various things. I'm just going to pick biology here because a lot of you might be biology or biological sciences, the way it's phrased here, Davis. Minor, a lot of you apply none for minor, or if you have a minor, go ahead and enter that in. Honestly, the major and the minor don't really affect you as far as whether you're considered for a program or not. And then if you had a double major, you would insert that there. And of course, we are a quarter institution and we are no longer attending this if we graduated. And then they'll say, when did we graduate, so on and so forth. So, or when did we start? So let's say we started fall of August, or actually for us, October of, let's see, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, 2016, fall of 2016. And then our last quarter was fall, which would be October of 2020. That's our fake institution that we went to. So we would save that and it's listed here. And then it tells you what transcripts if you're required to enter transcripts, and we'll do that on the next page. If you did a community college, you would do that here. I know it gets a little fuzzy when you have high school classes, which are college classes in high school. You would need to enter the community college that you attended for those college credits in high school. So make sure you're using not a high school transcript, but a college transcript for those high school classes that got you college credit. So that can be an issue as well. So any questions about how to enter and what to enter for the colleges and universities?
No.
Okay. So then we go into transcript entry. And this is something that is can take a little while. So I'd suggest you guys get on this earlier than later, because sometimes it takes a little while for the schools to process the transcripts and get them sent out to the universities, or sorry, to the application. So get your transcript ordered as soon as you can once you open your application. That way you don't have to wait on it for it to be set up. So you also see here, they ask you this question: would you like to have your transcripts entered, or would you like to do it yourself? You could do transcript entry. I've always found that I would rather rely on myself, and most of our students do it themselves. It's not really the hardest thing in the world. It's just a little tedious. So I would usually go with the no thanks, I'll handle it myself route. And then when it comes to transcript entry, we have to start our transcript and do quarter by quarter. So we're going to add a quarter. And let's say my first year here was, we said it was that fall of 2016. And we were a freshman at the time, and it was completed. And so we would add a course, and we would put in exactly as it appears on your official transcript. So you shouldn't use OASIS. You should not use your unofficial transcript to enter this. You should use your official transcript, which means you also need to request a copy for yourself, which, by the way, is a good idea. Once you've graduated, have like 5 paper copies in your own possession for your own records, because later in life, when you're in your 40s or 50s, you might need it again. So go ahead and get an official transcript or more so you can use it. You can get the PDF one right now because it's going to be faster. So let's say I take BIS 2C on the transcript. It's going to look like, or actually I took BIS 2A, it's going to look like this. And then, does anybody remember the exact title of BIS 2A? I cannot remember, but you're going to want to type what it is directly from the transcript. So if it says it's biological sciences, semicolon, blah, 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 and it cuts it off. Let's say it's biological sciences, anatomy up, and it just stops there, anatom. If it says that on your transcript, that's all you put. Don't add anything to it, just leave it exactly as would appear on your transcript. Subjects, pick the closest subject you can. Sorry, had to get the dogs to stop barking. Click the closest subject you can. So this would be just general biology. I would not call this anatomy, even though it was like probably some anatomy in it. So straight up biology. Then the number of units. So I believe our BIS 2A is 5 units, if I remember correctly. If it was fractional, you can always do fractional units there as well, like 5 1/4, 5 2/3, all that fun stuff. And then the grade you got in it, which let's say you got an A-. And it's the CAS grade is not something you enter, it's something that gets calculated by the system. So that's CAS for the application service. And so hit save, and we now have saved that class in our transcript. And now you would do this for every single class. Let's say you are in a quarter that is still continuing. Let's say you're still in school right now, and we're in spring 2020, or yeah, this would be spring 2020. Let's say you're a senior and it's in progress. It's okay to enter in progress classes if that's still something going on for you. Let's say right now, we are now taking, I don't know, EVE 100, which is evolution. I am not remembering this correctly, but again, select the subject that most closely matches. We might find evolution. Oh, there it is, evolution. And I think that's a 3-credit class. And let's say we got a B in that one. We can't write a B because it's in progress. So we've got a B currently, but we don't know that it's actually a B. So it won't let us enter grades for those in progress classes, which makes sense because we wouldn't know what those grades are. So you need to enter all the courses you've completed and all the courses that you have got in progress. Now, prerequisites are going to come up, and for the programs that you have at the bottom of the page, it'll show you the prerequisites that it has for the different schools that you've added to your application. And these things will disappear once the classes show up. So let's add a class to show how that might disappear. Actually, let's see. Let's do calculus. So right now it's saying we need to have 3 minimum units of calculus. So let's put in a calculus class and make sure that happens. So what is that? Math 7, wait, math 17A. That's calculus. I don't remember the exact title again. I can't spell calculus. Calculus 1, and we'll put in here calculus. Like so, and isn't that a 4-credit class, I think? And let's say I got a B in that. Voila, save it. And it doesn't disappear, but it's just going to remind us that we have to have that class. So we do have the credit for it. This is just a nice little reference to say, hey, I've got those things entered in and I need to make sure they're there. The last thing I'll say is on this is, let's say we have a class that we are, let's see, retaking because of a bad grade. Let's say we did Chem 118A, organic chemistry. I know that's one that people often have a struggle with. And the first time I did it, let's say I got a C minus, a D or a D plus. I still have to put that in there, even if in a later quarter I retook it and it was replaced to the grade. Because on your official transcript, it will still show up as a D plus, and it will have that little note saying it was retaken. So all of your grades matter, including the ones that you've retaken. So you have to include those on here. So it's kind of a pain, but it is what you have to do, and it does add into your overall GPA that the CAS is going to calculate for you. All right. So any questions at this stage? How are we doing? All righty. So then you got to enter your standardized tests in there. I'm not adding any standardized tests, is if like maybe your school was test optional. But let's say we took the OAT. I'm going to add my test score. Have you taken the test? Yes. When did you take the test? Let's say I did it on the 6th, and then I would put on all my scores. And then I would just make sure that when I have this in here, I've got to send the score report into the schools to which I'm applying. So the OAT score goes to the schools, not to the application. You're expected to put those scores in here. Now notice you could have set it so that have you taken the test? Not yet. Maybe I'm taking it at the end of the month. That is okay. You don't have to have your test score immediately when you submit. So it's okay to enter it after the fact. So be aware that you don't have to have your test scores in immediately. Now let's go back to colleges attended. I always wait to do the official transcript orders on these until after I get my transcript entered, just to make sure I'm good to go. So now I'm ready to order my transcript. So go in, order the transcript, and we got all these different things. With Davis, you can use one of these electronic transcript selections. So what you would do is go to the Davis website, hpa.ucdavis, slash, oh, what is it called? Why can't I think of the place? All of a sudden I went blank. I'm just going to go to the main website and type in transcripts. That's the main website. Type in transcripts. Transcript. The registrar. There we go. Go to the registrar's site, and you need to order official transcripts. So order the official transcript, and you would go through My UC Davis, but notice how it says use credential services here. You go through My UC Davis, I can request it through here, and I don't know if I can show you because I'm not a student, but when you do your official transcript request, it'll take you to a website called Credential Solutions. And that's where you enter in your information for your application for your OptomCAS, and you'll get a number that coordinates to your account. So go back here, we'll say Credential Solutions here. This is where you get that number. You get your Credential Solutions number for your application from this location. This is what you enter into your Credential Solutions account that comes up on My UC Davis. And that's how you're going to make sure your transcript goes from Davis to your OptomCAS application. Does that make sense to everybody? Because this is a little bit of one of those confusing things. All right, it seems like that does. Now, not all schools are going to be able to use the electronic transcripts. So if your school cannot do that, this often happens with community colleges. You're going to order a mailed paper transcript. And in this case, you have a transcript ID again. You would have to submit this information to the university or the college that doesn't do the electronic transcripts. And then they would actually get you or submit your transcript in that way. Those definitely take longer than if you were to go through the electronic, but sometimes you don't have any choice. That's why it's good to jump on getting this transcript entry and transcript submission first on your application. Other things might be easier for you to do or less tedious. Get this done first. All righty. So let's get out of here. I think I'm stuck. I'll do this later. There we go. So academic history, any questions on that portion of the application?
No, everything sounds pretty clear.
All righty. Now let's go on to supporting information. So supporting information includes three things: letters of recommendation, and OptomCAS requires one, but you can have four. I would encourage you all to submit more than one, get as many as you can. But the first letter of recommendation, that's the required one. This is going to be most likely your academic recommendation. You would create a letter recommendation request here, and that's entering the information, the due dates, all the stuff to the evaluator. So this is your official ask to your letter of recommender. Now, should not be the first time you ask them to do it. You should set it up and say, I'm going to be applying in such and such a time. Here's when it's going to be due, before you actually do this. Do not surprise an evaluator by just going, I set it up in my application, surprise. So you want to give them some time to think about it and just say yes. And then if you're getting a committee evaluation, you say yes, but here at Davis, we do not do committee evaluations. So you'd be doing no here. Then enter the faculty's name, their email address, the date you want them to have it done, which, by the way, does not have to be before you submit. It'd be good to have it close to when you submit, but it doesn't have to be the day that you're submitting. It can come a little bit after, just to make it, basically, it would hold up your application from being sent off to the colleges that you're applying to. And then type a little message just letting them know. The question here, waiver of evaluation, means you waive your right to see it or no, you do not. I would encourage everybody to use you do waive your right to see it. That way, like, it just says that you trust your evaluator and that you know that they're going to write you a good recommendation. That's how you should be setting things up. And then permission to contact the reference or permission for the schools to contact the reference. That's just saying I allow either OptomCAS or the schools you're applying to actually ask some additional questions of the recommender. In my history of doing this, I have not seen a time where the schools or OptomCAS will actually ask them any questions. It's generally, they don't do that. There's no real point, just because, I mean, what additional questions is they going to ask? That would be kind of strange. So you can enter your official one or your primary one there, and then you can do the same thing for 3 more using this create letters of recommendation request that's not part of the one important one. Experiences, here where you add your experiences in, and you should never hit I'm not adding experiences. You'll show it add an experience, and you get to select from several types. You've got employment, extracurriculars, optometric experience, shadow, volunteer. Be as close as you can. If it seems to fit more than one category, pick one of the categories. It doesn't have to be a perfect lineup. I would make sure you have at least something in every category if you're submitting your application. And then name, contact info, who the supervisor is, when you did it, how much time you've spent doing it. Like here's average weekly hours, number of hours, total hours. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to account to the minute for this stuff, but basically think, average it out. If you did it for a year, you worked like 10 hours a week for a year, but sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, it's okay. Average it out at 10 hours for 52 weeks, something like that. And then a description of the responsibility. Be careful here not to start just listing, I learned how to do this, I did this, I did this, I did this. Try to keep it for like, do some of that first couple sentences, do that. Here's what you did, your duties, that kind of stuff. But then also remember to add into there a big takeaway. Like, what was your takeaway? What did this tell you about yourself or about the world of optometry? That would be an important piece of this, like maybe 1 or 2 sentences for that as well. And then, may we contact the organization? Again, just say yes. They're not going to contact these organizations. Again, I've never seen historically them do that. So enter in your experiences, and there you go. Same thing, achievements looks very similar. Add achievement. What achievement type? It's really honor, awards or honors. Things like awards are going to be a scholarship or dean's list or some kind of like best something or other that you get. Honors might be an honor society that you get into or something like that as well. Name of presenting organization, issue date, very self-explanatory here. I would imagine you're not going to have a huge number of things as far as honors achievements. At this stage of the game, maybe like 5 or 6 at the most, probably more like 1 or 2, maybe 3. So this part, I think, is the experiences and the achievements is probably one of the most self-explanatory. I will encourage you on the experiences, get some help writing these things. So that's something you can use HPA for, is you can set an appointment up and we can look over what you're writing for your experiences and we can help you tweak them so they're saying what you want them to say. I like to tell folks, think about what adjective or adjectives you want this particular experience to display about you as far as making you a good candidate for optometry school. And like, make sure that each experience that you have has a different set of adjectives. So you're making them serve a very clear purpose. Each one of them will add to your application instead of duplicate themselves. So on the experiences side, or the, what I should say, supporting information side, how you doing? Everybody up to speed? Got any questions on that? All right, looking good so far. So finally, program materials. This is going to be specific program materials that the different programs you put on your application are going to request from you. So each school might have a different additional set of things they want you to do. So right now I click onto the Puerto Rico program and it's going to give you some details about the program, some questions specifically they are going to ask you. So will this duplicate what you already put in your application? Potentially, yes. So you still need to fill it out. So here we got an essay question. Please describe what inspires your decision to become an optometrist, da, da, da. And they're asking for your OAT information again at this point. It's a little annoying that sometimes it's duplicating information, but it is what it is. And here again is telling you what the prereqs that you've got. So this isn't bringing anything up because we didn't really truly do our transcript entry, but you should see at the end of filling out your entire transcript, if you've got all the prereqs, it should give you credit for all the prereqs. So this is something you want to do last and make sure that each one of these things go through each of the tabs. I know I've worked with people before that forgot to go through these other two tabs, questions and prerequisites. Home is just information. It doesn't really tell you anything, but these other things you definitely do. This is also where you can add additional programs. So just to show you how we do that, I'm going to go back to add program here. And again, there's not very many available right now because we're at the end of the cycle, but I'm going to go ahead and add in both these other two. And then I'm going to go back to my application and to my program materials. And now we see these other two schools here. So you'll go into each of them and check them. Home, questions. So notice how this school has different questions. You previously applied to an OD program, you're reapplying, da da da. Why have you decided to do this program? Where's your native language, and so on. So this one has quite a few additional questions they're asking you on top of your application. And then of course, we have the prerequisites page here as well. And let's see what that third school has for us. New England College of Optometry. Questions, we've got OptomCAS personal statement. So looks like they're just, this actually should be populated from your other personal statement that you wrote for this thing. Supplemental questions here. What other schools are you applying? They want to know what other schools you're applying to, and so on and so forth. Again, the standardized test information, even though you've probably already entered it like 5 times by now. It's just so annoying why they do this. This one requires documents. So if you want to put they're going to request your CV optionally, so you can add your CV to here. Other documents that you might add for whatever reason. So you can do that here, and then prerequisites yet again. So make sure to hit each and every tab across the top for each of the schools that you're doing. This is probably the most tedious part of the application because it's there's a lot of redundancies and every school is going to be a little bit different potentially. Finally, once you do that, you would submit your application and it's going to tell you how much money you owe. So if I'm applying to 3 schools, it's going to cost me $320. And at this point, I could trash one of my applications. I hope you've made that decision yourself. You do not have to submit them all at the same time. That's another important thing. You can submit to individual schools. So based on deadlines or based on interest or whatever it is, you can submit to individual schools here. And finally, once you've submitted, you can always go to check status and it'll tell you where you're at. And here's a nice way to help us if you're asking somebody at HPA for help. You can download your whole application as a PDF. It'll download everything you've entered as it'll be like a 20-page PDF most likely. And then you can give that to us, you can send that to us, and we'll be able to look at it with you and make sure that you've got the right things in there. So it's a nice way to make sure that your application is complete before the end of the day. And there you go. That is OptomCAS in a nutshell. So why don't I open up the floor to questions right now and see what questions you might have.
I have a question. So in regards to the OAT score, would you say it puts you at a disadvantage if you submit your application without having that score in yet?
It's going to depend on the school. Like right now, we're seeing a lot of schools that are test optional. So no, it's not going to affect you negatively there. The only thing it might do is if it is a school that does require it, then it's going to slow down your school looking at it because your application won't get looked at until after it's complete. And that if it's a school that requires the OAT score, it would not be complete until the score is with the application.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure. And I do know that there's right now some schools that are going OAT or GRE. So you have that option, but it's only a couple schools. So definitely look at the individual schools and what their expectations are this year, because things are a little wonky still because of COVID. Some schools are going back to using the OT a little bit more regularly. Some are bailing on it still and saying OET optional. Some of them are saying OET or GRE. Some are saying just no test at all. So there's that possibility. So check into the schools before you start getting, like, I would look at each of the schools you plan on applying to and see if you even need the OET. It's a really expensive test, $500. It might be something you could avoid if you see all the schools you're planning on applying to do not require it. Now, putting it on there, if it doesn't need it, sure, go ahead if you want to do that. That doesn't hurt it at all. Could even give you a leg up.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? That was a good one. All right, well, it seems there's no other questions right now. So hopefully I answered all your questions to the ability to give you the ability to go do this without much trouble at all. But do remember that HPA is always here. You can always set up an appointment and we can work with you on this thing, because sometimes it gets a little confusing, especially when you're entering transcripts. It gets a little bit like, what do I classify this as? Like one of them I forgot to mention, like seminar classes. A lot of times it's difficult to figure out what that should be categorized as. Most likely a seminar class isn't going to matter all that much. So just pick the closest thing you can and call it good, because it's a pass, no pass also. So it's not going to affect your GPA at all. So it's no problem as far as how you classify it in that case. Other ones, the ones that are most important to classify correctly are going to be the ones that are prereqs. So, all righty. Well, if there's nothing else, thank you guys for coming today. I appreciate it. And hopefully this helped you out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, you guys have a good rest of your week, or I should say have a good weekend, because we're at that point. So bye-bye now.
You too. Thank you.